My wife bought a second identical house across town for her secret weekend getaways. It sounds like something out of a movie, right? Like some elaborate spy thriller or a ridiculous soap opera plot. But it's my life. Or at least, it was. And honestly, I'm still trying to figure out if it is my life, or if I'm just trapped in some really twisted, high-stakes dream. Before we dive any deeper into this mess, though, if any of this is hitting you, if it's sparking something in you, please hit that subscribe button. Smash it, actually. And while you're down there, give this a like, share it with anyone you think might need to hear a story like this, and definitely leave a comment. I need to know I'm not alone in this, that someone else out there gets it. Because right now, I feel like I'm screaming into the void. It started, as these things often do, with something small. Something so insignificant, I almost didn't even register it. We'd been married 10 years. 10 good years, I thought. Sarah and I, we had it all, or at least what we'd worked damn hard for. A comfortable house in the suburbs, the kind with the manicured lawn and the 2-car garage that never quite had enough room. Kids, 2 of them. A boy and a girl running around, leaving a trail of Lego bricks and half-eaten fruit snacks in their wake. A decent life. A normal life. That was the goal, right? To build this perfect little American dream. And we had. Or so I told myself every single morning when I kissed her goodbye, the scent of her French vanilla perfume clinging to my shirt, and drove off to my moderately successful accounting firm. The first inkling, the tiny pebble that started the avalanche, was a credit card statement. Nothing dramatic, just a charge for a local locksmith. I shrugged it off. Maybe she'd locked herself out. Happens. Then a few weeks later, another one. Same amount, same company. Okay, now I'm a little curious. She's not the type to lose keys. She's organized, meticulous, almost annoyingly so. Everything has its place, every bill is paid on time, every appointment is logged in her pristine planner. So 2 locksmiths in a month? I asked her, casually over dinner. Oh, honey, she'd said, a little too brightly, her fork pausing halfway to her mouth. Just being extra careful after that little scare we had with the patio door last month. You know, that weird rattling sound? The patio door hadn't rattled. It had been fine. But I let it go. Women, right? A little dramatic sometimes. I'd heard it all before. From friends, from colleagues. Just ignore it, man. It'll blow over. But it didn't blow over. It festered. Like a tiny splinter under the skin, it became this constant low-grade irritation. I started noticing other things. Little inconsistencies, oddities that, when viewed through the lens of those locksmith bills, began to form a pattern. She'd be out for longer than she said she would. A quick grocery run would turn into a 3-hour saga. Traffic was insane, she'd explain, and I'd nod, picturing the usual gridlock on the I-95. But then I'd check the traffic apps, and it would be clear. Light traffic, smooth sailing. She'd get these phone calls, always stepping into another room, her voice dropping to a whisper, a hushed intensity I'd never heard before. When I'd ask who it was, she'd just brush it off. Work, honey. Stressful project. Her phone, usually a gateway to shared calendars and family photos, became a fortress, passcode locked. No more scrolling through photos together on the couch. No more leaving it face up on the kitchen counter. It was always face down or tucked away in her purse. The intimacy we'd shared, the easy, open flow of our lives, started to feel like it was being dammed up, little by little. I tried to talk to her. Sarah, are you okay? You seem a bit distant lately. Her response was always the same. A practiced smile, a gentle touch on my arm. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just tired. Work's been a killer. Tired, distant, fine. The words became a shield. Then came the property records. My job in accounting, bless its soul, gave me access to a lot of public information. It's a necessary evil, I suppose, dealing with audits and tax filings, but it also means I can, with a few clicks and a bit of creative searching, find out a lot. I wasn't actively looking for anything, not really. It was more of a morbid curiosity, a gut feeling that something was off. I was reviewing a tax assessment for a property in a different part of town, a nice, quiet neighborhood, the kind of place where lawns are always perfectly mowed and the only noise is the occasional barking dog. And there it was, a house listed under Sarah's maiden name, Sarah Elizabeth Davies, not Sarah Miller, my Sarah. My heart did this weird thud thump against my ribs. It felt like I'd swallowed a golf ball. A second house, under her maiden name.
I pulled up the details, the address, the purchase date. It was a modest 2-story, a decent size, nothing ostentatious. But it was identical. Almost. The square footage was the same, the layout, the number of bedrooms and bathrooms. It was a mirror image of our home, just a few miles across town. In a neighborhood she'd never mentioned, a place she had no business being. I sat there, staring at the screen, the sterile glow of the monitor illuminating my increasingly pale face. The office was quiet, the hum of computers the only sound. Outside, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the parking lot. It felt surreal. I clicked on the property photos. A red brick facade, white trim, a small, well-kept garden. It was our house, or a carbon copy of it. A secret house. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Why? Why would she buy another house? And why in secret? And why was it so similar to our own? The locksmiths, the late nights, the hushed phone calls, it all snapped into place with a sickening click. It wasn't just a splinter anymore, it was a gaping wound. I went home that night in a daze. Sarah was making dinner, the familiar clatter of pots and pans a soundtrack to our usual evening routine. The kids were doing their homework at the kitchen island, their chatter a comforting, if distant sound. I watched her move, her movements fluid, efficient, her hair pulled back in her usual messy bun. She looked so normal, so unburdened. And I felt this surge of anger, so hot and fierce it took my breath away. How dare she? How dare she live this double life, this elaborate charade, while I was here oblivious, a fool? "Hey," she said, turning, a smile already on her lips. "Smells good, huh? I'm trying out that new pesto chicken recipe." I managed to nod, my throat tight. "Yeah, smells great." She came over, kissed me on the cheek, her lips cool against my skin. "Everything okay?" she asked, her eyes, those big brown eyes I'd fallen in love with, scanning my face. "Yeah," I lied, "just a long day." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there, the space between us in the bed feeling like a chasm. Every rustle of the sheets, every sigh from Sarah felt amplified. I kept replaying the images from the property website in my mind, the identical house, her maiden name, the locksmith. It was too much. The betrayal, even the suspicion of it, was a bitter taste in my mouth. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I wanted to scream, to shake her awake and demand answers, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed. What if I was wrong?
What if there was a perfectly innocent explanation I was too blind to see? But the evidence, the gut feeling, it was too strong. The next few days were a blur of forced normalcy. I went to work, I smiled at my kids, I kissed Sarah goodbye in the morning. But inside, I was a coiled spring, wound tighter and tighter. I started watching her, really watching her. Every glance, every word, every unexplained absence. I'd check her phone when she was in the shower, her laptop when she was out. Nothing. She was meticulous, like a professional. One Saturday, she said she was going to a book club meeting. Usually these things were a cozy affair at someone's house with wine and snacks. This one, though, she was vague about the location, just somewhere downtown. She took her car, her usual sensible sedan. A few hours later, I drove, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs, towards the address of that second house. I parked a few blocks away, my hands clammy on the steering wheel. The neighborhood was quiet. Tree-lined streets, houses that looked like they were plucked from a magazine. I saw the house, her house. The identical red brick facade, the white trim, the perfectly manicured lawn. It looked so peaceful, so lived in. I waited. Time stretched and warped. The sun climbed higher, beating down on my car. My mind raced, conjuring 1,000 scenarios, each one more painful than the last. Then, I saw it. A car pulled into the driveway. A sensible sedan. Sarah's sedan. My breath hitched. My vision blurred. I watched as she got out of the car, a shopping bag slung over her shoulder. She looked relaxed, happy, a small smile playing on her lips. She unlocked the front door and went inside. The door clicked shut behind her. I sat there, frozen, my entire world tilted on its axis. The woman I loved, the mother of my children, was inside that house. A secret house, her secret getaway, and I had no idea why. Was she meeting someone? Was it another life entirely? The questions pounded in my head, each one a hammer blow to my already shattered trust. I felt a cold dread seep into my bones, a profound loneliness that threatened to swallow me whole. This was it, the confirmation, the undeniable gut-wrenching proof.
and I had no idea what to do next. The silence of the suburban street pressed in on me, heavy and suffocating. I just sat there, watching the identical house, the silence amplifying the deafening roar of my own unraveling life. This was just the beginning, and I was already drowning. The silence of that street was a physical weight. It pressed against my eardrums, against my chest, until I thought I might actually burst. I sat there, the engine of my car idling, the smell of exhaust fumes mingling with the sickly sweet scent of freshly cut grass. Sarah's car was in the driveway. Her house was there, and my wife, my Sarah, was inside her secret house. The thought echoed in my skull, a hollow, damning repetition. What was she doing? Who was she with? The sun was high now, beating down, making the asphalt shimmer. Sweat beaded on my forehead, trickled down my temples. I felt a primal urge to just get out, to run to that door and kick it down, to scream her name until she came out, until she explained. But my legs were lead. My hands were frozen to the steering wheel. I was a spectator at the demolition of my own life, trapped in my car, watching the scene unfold from a safe, agonizing distance. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 15 minutes, the front door opened. My stomach plummeted. I braced myself, my knuckles white. She walked out, carrying a small grocery bag. Not a stranger, not a lover, just Sarah. She locked the door, a quick, practiced turn of the key, and then she was walking back to her car. A wave of relief, so potent it made me dizzy, washed over me, only to be immediately replaced by a new, sharper stab of confusion. A grocery bag. Was this it? Was she just shopping for her secret house? Why? A surge of irrational anger, hot and bitter, coursed through me. It felt like a taunt, like she was rubbing it in my face, this secret life, this hidden expense, and all I got to see was her coming out with a bag of milk and some organic kale. She got into her car, started the engine. I watched her pull out of the driveway, her gaze fixed straight ahead, not a flicker of recognition, not a hint of the terror that was coiling in my gut. She drove away, disappearing down the tree-lined street, leaving me alone with the silent, mocking house. I stayed put for another 10 minutes, the engine still humming, the heat radiating from the dashboard. Then, with a sigh that felt like it came from the very depths of my soul, I put the car in gear and slowly drove away, making sure to keep a safe distance, just in case. The drive back felt like navigating a minefield. Every familiar landmark, every stretch of road was now tainted by this new, horrifying knowledge. Our street, our house, the park where the kids played, all of it felt like a carefully constructed set, a stage for a play I was no longer a part of. When I finally pulled into my own driveway, the kids were already home from school, their backpacks strewn across the entryway, the familiar chaos of our actual life. Sarah's car was in the garage. She was inside, making dinner. She greeted me with that same easy smile, that same quick kiss on the cheek. "Hey honey, how was your day?" I mumbled something about it being fine, my voice rough and strained. I couldn't meet her eyes. I could feel the lie radiating off me in waves. I was a stranger in my own home, a spy in my own marriage. The pesto chicken aroma, which had seemed comforting just a few days ago, now felt cloying, suffocating. That night, I barely slept. I tossed and turned. The image of her emerging from that house burned into my retinas. The grocery bag, the unlocked door, it was all so domestic, so mundane. It didn't fit the narrative of a clandestine affair, of desperate passion. It felt almost more sinister, like she was nurturing this secret existence, this parallel life, with the same care she gave to her garden, her children, her marriage. It was the ultimate betrayal, not of passion, but of trust, of partnership, of everything we had built. The next few weeks were a tense, agonizing tightrope walk. I was consumed by the need to understand, to know. I'd stare at Sarah across the dinner table, at the kids' faces, and feel this overwhelming sense of disconnect. They were all living in a bubble of normalcy, completely oblivious to the earthquake rumbling beneath their feet. I'd catch myself watching Sarah, studying her every move, searching for any sign, any slip-up. Her phone became an obsession. I'd sneak glances when she left it lying around, my heart hammering against my ribs with every unlock attempt. But she was too good, too careful. The passcode was always there, a digital barrier between me and the truth. I started subtly probing. I was driving through that old Oakwood neighborhood the other day. I'd say casually during dinner. Lots of nice houses there. Reminded me of ours, actually. She'd just nod, her fork busy with her salad. Oh yeah, I haven't been through there in ages. No reaction. Nothing. It was like trying to chip away at a granite monument with a plastic spoon. One afternoon, I took another drive. This time not to the house, but to the area surrounding it.
I wanted to get a feel for the neighborhood, to see who else lived there. It was quiet, manicured, a classic suburban idyll. As I drove, I noticed something else. A small, local coffee shop tucked away on a side street, not far from Sarah's secret house. I pulled over, ordered a black coffee, and sat by the window, watching the world go by. I felt like a ghost, observing a life I used to inhabit. Then, I saw it. A familiar figure emerging from the coffee shop, a travel mug in her hand. Sarah. My blood ran cold. She looked different, more relaxed, almost vibrant. She was wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt, her hair loose, framing her face. She smiled at something on her phone, a genuine, unforced smile that I hadn't seen directed at me in months. She got into her car, not her usual sedan, but a sleek, dark blue SUV I'd never seen before. My mind raced. Where was she going? Who was she meeting? This wasn't just a secret house for weekend getaways. This was a whole separate existence. I started to feel a desperate need for concrete evidence, something I could hold on to, something irrefutable. The property records had been enough to confirm the existence of the house, but not its purpose. The SUV? That was new, and it fueled a fire of suspicion that was rapidly turning into pure, unadulterated rage. I started researching car dealerships, looking for similar SUVs, trying to track down registration details. It was a long shot, but I was desperate. One evening, after the kids were asleep and Sarah was engrossed in a book, I decided to take a bigger risk. I knew she often left her laptop on standby, not completely shut down. I crept into our bedroom, my heart pounding like a drum against my ribs. The laptop was there, on her nightstand. I sat down on the edge of the bed, my hands shaking, and gently opened the lid. It woke up with a soft chime. I navigated to her browser history. It was mostly innocuous, recipes, news articles, social media. But then I scrolled further back, and there it was, a series of searches. Not for recipes, not for news. SUV financing options. Best car insurance rates for luxury SUVs. Used Ford Explorer for sale near Oakwood. Ford Explorer VIN decoder. My breath hitched. An SUV. A secret SUV. And searches related to Oakwood, the neighborhood where her secret house was. I felt a wave of nausea. This wasn't just about a house. It was about a whole other life. A life she was actively building, financing, and concealing. I clicked on a saved link. It led to a private online auction site. And there, listed with a discreet description, was the exact same make and model of the SUV I'd seen her driving. The photos were clear. The mileage was low. The location of the dealership was a town about an hour away. A new fear began to take root, a cold, creeping dread that was even worse than the anger. Who was she meeting in that SUV? Who was she meeting in that house? Was it a man? Was it someone I knew? The thought sent a tremor through me. The intimacy we shared, the casual banter, the shared jokes, the late-night confessions. It all felt like a mockery now. I was a fool. A blind, trusting fool. I closed the laptop, my hands slick with sweat. The betrayal was no longer a vague suspicion, a gnawing doubt. It was a cold, hard fact, laid out in black and white, in digital ink. She had a secret house. She had a secret car. She had a secret life. And I was locked out of all of it. The anger was still there, a burning ember. But now it was mixed with a profound sense of hurt. It was the hurt of realizing that the person I had shared my deepest hopes and fears with, the person I had built a family with, had systematically and meticulously deceived me for how long? I got out of bed, needing air, needing to escape the suffocating atmosphere of our bedroom, of our life. I walked to the window, looking out at the dark suburban landscape. The street lights cast long, distorted shadows. I felt completely alone, adrift in a sea of unanswered questions. I thought about confronting her, about demanding answers right then and there. But what good would it do?
She'd deny it, of course. She'd spin another story. Another carefully crafted lie. I needed more. I needed proof. I needed to catch her, red-handed, with something undeniable. The next day at work, I felt like a zombie. My mind was elsewhere, replaying the search history, picturing Sarah driving that SUV, a post of a smile on her lips. I made a mistake on a client's report, a significant one. My boss, Mr. Henderson, a gruff but fair man, called me into his office. He was concerned. He'd never seen me like this. "Everything all right, Mark?" he asked, leaning back in his chair, his brow furrowed. I mumbled something about a family issue, about being tired. He nodded, but his eyes lingered on me, a silent question in their depths. I felt exposed, vulnerable. The weight of my secret life was becoming too much to bear. That evening, a text message notification flashed on my phone. It was from Sarah. "Hey babe, running late. Crazy meeting at work that just won't end. Might be a bit after the kids' bedtime. Don't wait up. Love you." My gut twisted. Running late. Crazy meeting. Don't wait up. The excuses, the familiar script, were playing out perfectly. But this time, I knew. This time, I had a sliver of insight into her movements. Oakwood, the SUV, the secret house. I waited until I was sure she was out of the house, until the kids were settled with babysitters in the skip. Then, I grabbed my keys, my phone, and the spare set of house keys I kept in a small ceramic bowl by the back door. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just drove, towards Oakwood, towards her secret house. The night was dark, the stars barely visible through the light pollution. Each mile I covered felt like I was stepping further into a nightmare. My hands were clammy on the steering wheel, my heart a frantic bird trapped in my chest. I was about to do something I never imagined I'd do. I was about to break into my wife's secret house. The thought was terrifying, exhilarating, and deeply, profoundly wrong. But the need to know, the gnawing uncertainty, had pushed me past the point of no return. I pulled up a few blocks away, parked the car, and started walking. The street was quiet, dimly lit. The houses stood silent, like watchful sentinels. And there it was, her house, dark, silent, waiting. I approached the front door, my breath catching in my throat. The spare key felt cold and heavy in my hand. I slid it into the lock. It turned with a soft click. The door swung open, revealing a dark, silent interior. I stepped inside, into the unknown, into the heart of my wife's deception. The air was still, carrying the faint scent of something familiar, yet foreign, like her perfume, but older, fainter. And as my eyes adjusted to the gloom, I saw it, a faint light emanating from the living room, and I heard it, a low murmur of voices, not just one, two, distinct, familiar, and my blood ran ice cold as I recognized one of them. It was her, Sarah, but the other voice, it wasn't a lover, it was a child's voice, soft and questioning. And then, another sound, a sob, deep, gut-wrenching, and it wasn't Sarah's. It was a man's sob, a man's broken whisper. I can't do this anymore, Sarah. My knees buckled.
I stumbled against the wall, the sound of my own ragged breath deafening in the silence. A man's sob, a child's voice, and my wife, my Sarah, in this secret house. Who was this man? And whose child was it? The darkness of the house pressed in on me, suffocating, as I stood on the precipice of a truth more devastating than I could have ever imagined. The muffled sounds from the living room were a physical assault. They clawed at me, tearing through the carefully constructed walls of denial I'd been hiding behind. A man's sob, a child's voice. Sarah. The pieces clicked into place with a sickening, jagged finality, the picture forming not of infidelity, but of something far more complex, far more heartbreaking. My Sarah. My wife. My children's mother. And this secret life. My mind reeled, struggling to reconcile the woman I thought I knew with the sounds filtering from that room. It wasn't the cheap, tawdry affair I'd imagined. This was something else entirely. I pushed myself off the wall,
my legs still shaky, and crept towards the living room doorway. The faint light spilled out, illuminating a scene that stopped me dead. Sarah was sitting on the sofa, her face buried in her hands, her shoulders shaking. Across from her, in a worn armchair, sat a man. He was older, maybe late 50s, with tired eyes and a face etched with a profound sadness. Beside him, perched on the edge of the chair, was a little girl, no older than 5 or 6, clutching a well-loved teddy bear. She looked bewildered, her small brow furrowed, her lower lip trembling. And the man, he was the one crying, not hysterically, but with a quiet, desperate grief that was more devastating than any outburst. I can't do this anymore, Sarah. The man choked out, his voice raw with pain. Every time I see her, it's like seeing him again. It's too much. He gestured weakly towards the little girl. My heart hammered against my ribs. Him? Who was him? And why did this child, this little girl, remind him so intensely of him? Sarah looked up then, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen. She saw me, standing in the doorway, a silent, gaping wound in the fabric of their private grief, her face drained of all color. "Mark," she whispered, her voice barely audible. What are you doing here?" I couldn't answer. My voice had deserted me. I just stared, my gaze flickering between Sarah, the man, and the child. The man's head snapped up, his tear-streaked eyes locking onto me. Recognition flickered. Then a dawning horror. Who is this?" The man stammered, his voice laced with fear. Sarah took a shaky breath. This is Mark. My husband. Husband. The word hung in the air, heavy with unspoken history, with a betrayal I hadn't even begun to comprehend. The man let out a small, broken sound, a whimper that seemed to echo the child's distress. He looked at Sarah, his gaze pleading, confused. "Sarah, what is this? What have you done?" Sarah stood up, slowly, deliberately. She walked over to me, her movements stiff, her eyes never leaving mine. "Mark," she said, her voice gaining a fragile strength. This is not what you think." "Then what is it, Sarah?" My voice, when it finally came, was a gravelly, broken whisper. "What is this house? Who is this man? And who is that child?" She looked at the little girl, her gaze softening with an emotion I couldn't quite decipher. Was it pity, sadness, guilt? "This is Lily," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "And this man, this is David." David. The name meant nothing to me. But Lily looked so lost, so vulnerable. I looked back at Sarah, my mind a frantic, jumbled mess. "Who are they, Sarah?" I demanded, the anger finally starting to claw its way out from beneath the shock. "Why do you have a secret house? Why are you here with them?" Sarah's gaze dropped to her hands. She wrung them, her knuckles white. "Mark, Lily is our daughter." The words hit me like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. I stumbled back, my hand flying to my mouth. What are you talking about? Our daughter? We don't have a daughter, Sarah!" David stood up then, his face a mask of confusion and pain. He looked from Sarah to me, a dawning comprehension in his eyes that was more terrifying than any lie. "Our daughter," he repeated, his voice hollow. "Sarah, who is Mark?" Sarah turned to him, her eyes pleading. "David, there's something I need to tell you both. Something I should have told you a long time ago." She gestured towards the armchair. "Sit down, Mark." I didn't sit. I couldn't. I stood there, rooted to the spot, watching the woman I had loved for 15 years, the woman I had built a life with, unravel before my eyes. Sarah took a deep breath, her gaze fixed on the little girl, Lily, who was now watching them with wide, frightened eyes. "Mark," Sarah began, her voice barely a whisper, but clear, and for the first time in weeks, utterly devoid of artifice. "Before I met you, I was married to David." The air crackled with unspoken accusations. David's eyes widened, his mouth falling open. He looked at me, then at Sarah, a silent question passing between them. "We were married for 5 years," Sarah continued, her voice growing steadier. as if the act of speaking the truth, however devastating, was releasing a pressure that had been building for years. It was difficult. David struggled with addiction. He was a good man, deep down, but his demons, they were too much for him. We tried everything. Rehab, therapy, nothing worked. He became unreliable, dangerous. I was afraid for myself, and afraid for when we started trying for a family. She paused, her gaze drifting towards Lily. David watched her, his own grief momentarily forgotten, replaced by a stunned disbelief. We were trying for a baby, Sarah went on, her voice thick with unshed tears. And after a few months, I found out I was pregnant. I was so happy, so relieved. I thought it would change everything. It would make David pull himself together, but it didn't. He relapsed, worse than ever. He was out of control. And I knew with absolute certainty that I couldn't bring a child into that kind of instability. I couldn't let my baby grow up in that kind of fear. Her voice broke. She swallowed hard, tears now freely streaming down her face. So, I made a choice. A terrible, selfish choice. I know. But I was so scared, Mark. So desperate. I left him. I didn't tell him I was pregnant. I just disappeared. I moved here, to Oakwood. I bought this house. I told everyone I was moving for work, starting fresh. And I never told David I was pregnant. I never told him about Lily. She looked at me, her eyes pleading for understanding, for forgiveness, for something. I started over. I met you a year later. You were so kind, so stable, so wonderful. You gave me the life I had always dreamed of. A safe life, a loving life, a life I thought I deserved. And we had our own children, our beautiful, healthy children. And I kept my secret. I kept Lily a secret. I told myself it was for the best. For everyone. For you. For our children. For Lily. David stood there, stunned, his face a picture of utter devastation. He looked at Lily, then back at Sarah. So Lily, she's mine, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. Yes, David, Lily is yours.
She's your daughter. David sank back into the armchair, his head in his hands, his body racked with silent sobs. Lily, sensing the shift in the room, crawled onto his lap, her small arms wrapping around his neck. He held her tightly, burying his face in her hair, a broken man weeping for a lost daughter, for a lost marriage, for a lost life. I felt a cold dread wash over me. My mind was struggling to process the magnitude of it all. Sarah's secret, her secret house, her secret daughter. It wasn't an affair. It was a whole hidden past, a ghost from her former life that had suddenly materialized and shattered my present. You let me believe, I stammered, my voice hoarse. You let me believe all these years that we had a perfect life, that we were perfect. Sarah met my gaze, her eyes filled with a profound sorrow. I loved you, Mark. I love you. I always have. And I love our children. I couldn't bear to lose you. I couldn't bear to bring all that darkness into the light, into our life. I thought I was protecting us. Protecting us? I echoed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. By living a lie? By hiding a child? By deceiving me for years? My voice was rising, laced with a fury I hadn't known I possessed. Whose child were you going to tell me about, Sarah? The one you birthed and hid away, or the ones you had with me while this other child, this other life was existing in secret? She flinched at my words, her face paling further. I was going to tell you, Mark. I was just waiting for the right time, for the right moment. I knew it would hurt you. I knew it would change everything. But I also knew I couldn't keep it from you forever. And then David, he found me. He somehow found out about Lily. He tracked me down. He's been trying to reconnect with her. He's been in recovery for years. He's a different man, Mark. He's sober. He's stable. And he deserves to know his daughter. David, still holding Lily, looked up at me, his eyes bloodshot but clear. I've been clean for 8 years, Mark, he said, his voice quiet but firm. 8 years of hell. 8 years of regretting every mistake I ever made. When I finally found Sarah,
When I finally found out about Lily, I knew I had to try. I had to be a father. I had to be the father she deserved. Sarah, she's been helping me get to know Lily, helping me be a part of her life slowly. This house, it's been a neutral ground, a place where we could try to heal, to figure things out. I never wanted to hurt you, Mark. I swear. I just wanted to be a father. The room was thick with the palpable weight of years of secrets, of pain, of hidden lives. My life, Sarah's life, David's life, Lily's life. Everything I thought I knew was a carefully constructed facade, and the foundation had just crumbled. I looked at Sarah, the woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted implicitly, and I saw a stranger, a woman capable of profound deception, of monumental lies. But I also saw a flicker of the woman I had loved, the woman who had clearly been torn apart by her choices, by her fear. So, all this time, I started, my voice rough, you've been living a double life? A wife, a mother to our children, and a secret keeper, a mother to another child. And this man, he's been in your life this whole time, while you were with me? Sarah's eyes welled up again. He hasn't been in my life, Mark. Not like that. Not for a long time. He's been trying to be a father, and I've been trying to manage it all, to keep it separate, to protect you, and the kids. I know I failed. I know I messed up. Terribly. I turned away, unable to bear the sight of her tears, of her confession. I walked to the window, staring out at the dark, quiet street. Oakwood, this quiet, respectable neighborhood, the backdrop for a life I never knew existed. My life, Sarah's life, David's life, Lily's life, all intertwined, tangled in a web of secrets and lies. And our children? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Sarah shook her head. No, they don't know. And they can't. Not now. Not ever if I can help it. This is my burden, my secret, and it will remain that way. I finally turned back to face them. David cradling Lily, his eyes filled with a quiet sorrow. Sarah, her face etched with a guilt that seemed to consume her. The truth, when it finally came, was not what I had expected. It was not about betrayal in the way I had imagined, no steamy rendezvous, no illicit passion. It was about a deeper, more profound betrayal, a betrayal of trust, of honesty, of the very foundation of our marriage. I can't do this, Sarah, I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. The anger had subsided, replaced by a vast, empty landscape of hurt and disillusionment. I can't unsee this. I can't unhear this. I don't know who you are anymore. She took a step towards me, her hand outstretched, but I flinched away. Mark, please. No, I said, my voice firm, even though my whole body was trembling. No, Sarah, there's nothing left to say. You made your choices. You lived your secret life. And now I have to live mine, and I can't do it with you. I walked towards the door, my footsteps echoing in the silent house. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The weight of her lies, of his pain, of Lily's innocence, was too much to bear. As I opened the front door and stepped out into the cool night air, I heard Sarah's voice, a broken sob in the darkness behind me. Mark, wait. But I didn't wait. I walked away, the quiet streets of Oakwood blurring around me. The car felt like a familiar sanctuary, a place to escape the crushing reality of what had just transpired. I started the engine, the rumble a small comfort in the overwhelming silence. I drove away from the secret house, from the secret life, from the woman who had been my wife and was now a stranger. The road stretched out before me, dark and uncertain. I had no answers, no clear path forward, just the gnawing emptiness, the shattered pieces of a life I thought was real. The drive home was long, the miles passing in a blur of numb grief and profound regret. The house, our house, felt alien. The familiar comfort of our shared life had been irrevocably tainted. The truth, when it finally surfaced, hadn't brought relief, only devastation. I pulled into my driveway, the porch light a lonely beacon in the darkness. I sat there for a long moment, the engine humming, the silence in the car a stark contrast to the turmoil raging inside me. This was it, the end of everything, the last exhale of a life I once knew.